Welcome to the data overview for the 2015 through 2018 school years. I'm your presenter, Carmela Martinez, and I am presenting to the math department. The purpose of this presentation is to share the results of the data analyst in an effort to build a culture of awareness of student and teacher demographics, as well as student achievement strengths and weaknesses. Objectives are to improve data dialogue among the math faculty here at the school, and to examine data pertaining to our teacher and student populations to aid with our decision making, examine trends and disciplinary occurrences to create more effective policies and procedures, identify student strengths and weaknesses based on milestone scores, and to develop ways to decrease student weaknesses. Some questions to think about while we're looking at the data: what are our current strengths within math? What are our current weaknesses? What modifications that can be made to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students? How can the math teachers utilize the short and long term data to effectively evaluate their progress to help improve student growth? Are there any groups or subgroups of students that are not being successful in math? And what can math teachers do to help students close those achievement gaps? We're going to start off by looking at our CCRPI scores, which are our College and Career Ready Performance Index. And across the board, we can see from all 3 years, from 2015 to 2016, through to 2017 to the 2018 school year, that Lost Mountain Middle School has significantly outperformed the district and the state, getting a grade of A in the 2016-2017 school year and a grade of B in the 2015-16 school year and the 2017-2018 school year. Now, I can contribute the drop in letter grade from the 2017 to the 2018 school year with the fact that Lost Mountain did have a change in administration, which may have affected that score. Demographics of teachers by gender. Overwhelmingly, we have way more females than we do males, and we see consistently an increase in the female teacher population over the 3 years and a decrease in the male population, which is definitely not congruent with the demographics of our students at our school. Ethnicity, we do have a high population of Caucasian teachers as compared to our other subgroups, and that is comparable with our student population. But as far as our subgroups, those are definitely not comparable with our ethnicity of our student subgroups. So that's definitely an area that we need to work on and grow in. Years of experience, we definitely have more teachers with more experience in that 1 to 10 to 11 to 20 years. Hitting that bell curve is where we should be. And we do have some teachers who have been teaching 21 to 30 years or more at the school. So we see a definitely trend and years of experience here at the school. We do have a high percentage of retention of teachers. We do see some drop off and the teachers that are staying at the school as we go along throughout the years. Looking at some student demographics by enrollment, looking at the grade levels, we had a high influx of students in the 2015-2016 school year, and then we see that increase even more when those 6th graders become 7th graders from 385 to 401, and then we see an increase in that again when they become 8th graders from 401 to 409. Definitely our biggest enrollment year was the 2015-2016 school year, but those numbers have definitely started to taper off as we go further and further along. Looking at enrollment by ethnicity, definitely, like I said before, when we looked at the teacher ethnicity data, we can definitely see that correlation between the Caucasian student enrollment versus our teacher Caucasians working at the school. But we don't see those numbers meshing up when we look at our subgroups, which is an area that we definitely want to work on and bring in more of those subgroups into the area to help mesh up with those student demographics. Students with disabilities, our ELL learners and our gifted learners, definitely we have a huge number of gifted students with 320 and 2015 with an increase with 365 and the 2017 school year, and then 373. So we are definitely seeing an increase in that, and that's definitely what we want to do. And we do start to see a drop off when we get to the 2017-2018 year with the students with disabilities. We always have low numbers of ELL students at our school for some reason, but I think that's more to do with the fact that we have a high number of Caucasian students versus our different subgroups. Looking at discipline by gender, for some reason, we do tend to have more males getting in trouble than we do females, but we do see a trend that they do start to drop off as we go year to year. But then we see the same kind of numbers in the 2015-2016 year that we see in the 2017-2018 year. But we do see a decrease of almost 6% in behavior issues in the 2016-2017 year among our males. Looking at the demographics, the discipline by grade level, we do see in the 2015-2016 school year and 2017 and 2018 school year that we see in our sixth graders that they are consistently the lower disciplinary group, which makes sense. They're new to the school. They're kind of getting their feet up under them. They're not really making any waves. But then when they get into the seventh grade, we see an increase in discipline, almost a 20% jump, which is just outrageous. But when we go from year to year, we do start to see a decrease in that seventh grade area. And then we get into the eighth grade area, we had more seventh graders having disciplinary issues in the 2015-2016 year than we did eighth graders and sixth graders. But then when we get to the 2017 school year, we see that number increase for our eighth graders and decrease for our seventh graders, and then increase again for our eighth graders in the 2017-18 school year and decrease for our seventh graders and sixth graders again. Looking at it by ethnicity, we see that the Caucasian group is definitely a higher incident rate. But again, with the demographics being what they are, we have a larger number of Caucasian students at the school. So clearly you should expect to see more disciplinary issues within that group. But our next highest group is our African American. And again, hey, with those subgroups being what they are our second highest demographic group at the school. And so that's where I anticipate to see the greatest growth. But as we look through the years, we do see that those numbers are dropping off for our African American students, but unfortunately rising in our Caucasian students from one year to the next, but then dropping off just a smidge in the 2018 school year. Hispanics staying pretty even with the disciplinary issues. And unfortunately, we see a high rise within our not a high rise, but a definite rise in behavior issues in our multiracial and other ethnic groups. Just looking at the data by months, we see in the beginning of the school year that when we have these meetings and they have these administrative meetings with each grade level and they talk to the students about discipline and behavior and expectations, we see a low number of incidents. But as time goes on and those conversations are not really had by admin, we start to see a rise in disciplinary issues. But then in about the January, February timeframe, we start to see that drop because we have another meeting about behavior, expectations, and things like that. But then again, as the school year starts to wind down, kids get squirrely and they're like, I really don't care. We see an increase in disciplinary issue. That is definitely something that we need to work on. That is definitely an area of weakness. And clearly the 2 meetings a year are not enough to discourage poor behavior. And so we need to put some plans in place to kind of deal with that issue. Looking at our milestone scores, comparing our school to the state and the district, across the board, Lost Mountain Middle School significantly outperforms the state and the district. We have less students at the beginning levels and developing levels and more students at the proficient and the distinguishing. When I first looked at this, I was like, oh my God, the state and the district are outdoing us. But then I realized I definitely want us to have lower numbers in the beginning and developing in not greater numbers and have much higher numbers in the proficient and the distinguishing. So it was a little bit tricky when you first looked at this, but I want you to really pay attention to the fact that having a 5.4% versus having a 24.9% is fantastic for our school. So we definitely outperform our neighbors in our state on those levels. And one of our strengths is moving those students from the beginning levels to moving into the distinguished levels. And we can see an increase of that going from the 2015 to the 2016 to the 2017 school year. We're consistently making strides each year and increasing those numbers in our 3s and 4s and lowering those numbers in our 1s and 2s. Looking at our test results by ethnicity, I'm going to just look at the 2015-2016 school year first, and we can see our Asian subgroup outperforms all our other subgroups, and then our second highest subgroup that performs, our highest group that performs really well is our Caucasian, and our other subgroups that are falling, that are kind of mashing up, is the African American and the Hispanic. But if looking at it, African American, Hispanic, and Caucasian students are pretty even across the board. The most significance that we see is in our subgroup of Asians that are outperforming their peers. And the same thing is happening across the board for the 2016-2017 school year. But if we look back at the 2015-2016 year, we do see that there is an increase in moving those students from beginning and developing to proficient and distinguished. So we are definitely making strides and moving those students, but clearly there is some areas of growth that we can work on. And that, again, in our Asian population, they are definitely outperforming their peers. And that holds true with the 2017-2018 school years of our students in our Asian populations, just outperforming their peers, but we still seeing that comparable data for our African American, Hispanic, and Caucasian students. Just a summary of some things. Consistently, our students are outperforming the district and the state in math scores on the milestones. All our demographic subgroups have seen an increase in the percentage of students scoring at the distinguished levels of 4. So that's awesome. That's definitely a strength for us. There is not a significant difference between the performance in the African American, Hispanic, and Caucasian demographic subgroups scoring at those 3s and 4 levels, which is great for us. The initiation of a branching mathematics tutoring tool that occurred in the fall of 2018 among our 6th and 7th graders may warrant some further study to decide if this was a major contributing factor to the increase in scores in the level 3s and 4s. And our data is showing that it is very feasible for our school to set a goal to move 10 or 15% of our rising 8th graders to scoring from level 1s to level 2s and from level 2s to level 3s, and just moving those students one level up during our 2019-2020 school year. Some questions to ponder as we look ahead. What are the best plans moving forward to ensure a continuation of excellence at our school? With the understanding that Lost Mountain has had a decrease in student enrollment from our feeder schools, and so we have opened up 125 seats, and so how can we continue our excellency when we have that many new students coming into our building from different places? As the student population demographics are likely to change because of those 125 seats in the 2019-20 school year, what changes can we anticipate for our school culture, and what strategies can we put into place to meet our students where they are and to ensure that they are achieving at the best of their abilities? And how does analyzing the data from the last 3 years affect our teaching choices moving forward? Thank you for participating in this meeting today, and I have a great day.